Welcome to Eloquent Insights,
but to encourage them to think about their problems and how they can fix their problems.
brought to you by your hosts Nicole Jabu and Oprah Manyika. Today, we're thrilled to have Ruth Kudzai with us, a powerhouse in career and lifestyle coaching and the visionary founder of the Exec Branch and the Stanham Foundation. Ruth's work is transforming lives and careers around the globe, but her heart remains deeply connected to Africa. Her passion for empowerment and giving back shines brightest. In this episode, we'll explore Ruth's journey, her commitment to excellence, and how she's leveraging her success to create lasting impact. Whether you're seeking career growth, lifestyle transformation, or simply some inspiration, Ruth's story is one you won't want to miss. Let's dive into this eloquent insight with Ruth Kudzai.
Is it to say that this person is more better than you? No. It just means maybe they have been out, they've networked more, but it doesn't mean that they're better than you. You are still yourself, and when the opportunity comes, it will come in the right time. And a lot of the time, we're always trying to rush, we're always trying to be like, I want that, I want this, but everything in its own time. I feel God will make it beautiful.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, whatever people may think about that is irrelevant because it's about you. And I feel like when we talk about our successes, we're also manifesting and affirming to ourselves because we don't take the time to do that. So however you talk about successes, whether it's through social media or whether through like a conversation with a friend, it is an affirmation to. It's also a reminder to you like, yeah, I did that, because you can't wait for somebody to tell you that. That's how you build up your confidence, your self-esteem to then tackle the next thing, I think. But yeah.
I also think that like being able to internalize and accept your successes.
Yeah.
How was that journey like for you?
Yeah, it's been a rocky journey, I would say. I think society has, like one thing that my husband encouraged me to do is every day, at the end of the day or first thing in the morning, depends what our schedules look like. We sit down and say, what 3 things are you grateful for?
Welcome to the show, Kudzai.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
You're looking lovely.
Oh, so do you girls.
Yeah,
I had
thank
to
you.
up my game.
I really love the look.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are you? How are you doing?
Not too bad. Enjoying Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
So
Welcome to Zimbabwe.
Yeah, it's so good.
What's the weather like? What's happening?
It's been really good actually.
Yeah.
It's a shame it's starting to rain, but I'm about to leave, so I'm like,
You're about to leave. You're about to leave us. No way.
I feel like this is a nice transition
Mhm.
to UK weather, so yeah. I'm just like, I'll embrace the cold here because I know it's going to be worse when I get home.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Who's Ruth?
Ruth. Professionally, I'm a project manager, so I manage diverse teams, particularly concerned with generating income for the business. And then outside of that, got quite a lot of passions. I like to think I'm multi-passionate, multifaceted, and I am embracing all of that. I would definitely say my mission is really just to empower people, to make them live their best life in the best way possible, and wherever I can help, I like to be able to do that, which is also evident in the women events that I do, the sort of career coaching and personal development that I do as well, as well as the management side. So I run a management consultancy, again helping people generate income because we can't come die. We need to make money.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
You also run a foundation, Stanham Foundation.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
What's
do.
that about?
It is about championing social entrepreneurship in Zimbabwe particularly. And that was born out of me and my co-founder. People in Zimbabwe are business people. Sometimes it's not by choice, it's because that is the only option that is there because it is quite difficult to get jobs. And so you find, there's a lot of traders, there's a lot of people getting into entrepreneurship. But our message through the Stanham Foundation is to encourage them to think, okay, if you're, perhaps it's a disadvantaged background or, you're living in the rural areas, you don't have electricity, what can you do to find a solution? It doesn't have to be, okay, I'm going to create the biggest fashion line, but to encourage them to think about their problems and how they can fix their problems. Because once they do that, they'll start impacting the community. This person might be facing the same problem and you've just developed a solution. And then hopefully as they grow, they will start creating employment. The business is expanding. So just trying to encourage people to really think about solving problems. And, Africa is the home ground of problems. So there's a lot of scope and opportunity for them to, to create multi-million dollar businesses, really. So,
Mhm. So,
yeah.
like during your introduction, I caught something.
Yeah.
You said you're quite a multifaceted person, and you're just starting to embrace that now.
Yeah.
It sounded to me like it's been a journey of accepting the stages that you're in, and quite coincidentally, just in one of our previous episodes, we were speaking of just being able to internalize and accept your successes.
Yeah.
How was that journey like for you?
Yeah, it's been a rocky journey, I would say. I think society has not a way, but it makes you feel that you need to stand for like one thing, and that was like quite hard for me. I think that was one of the things that I needed to get over, to say like, okay, yes, I could be a career woman, but I also like to do this. I also like to do this. So how do I embrace it? And it wasn't like it just happened overnight. It's taken years. It's taken years of me accepting and cultivating. We all talk about personal branding. We all talk about who is the individual. So I think I had that realization during the pandemic. I was furloughed at work, so I had a lot of time to just not work and sit by myself. And especially, because I went into the corporate world straight from university, and I was like always on running 150 miles. I never really like slowed down. So, when I would introduce myself to people, I would introduce myself by my job, but not about who I am. And actually, it was my husband who, when we started dating, was like, "So who are you?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm a project manager." He's like, "No, but what does that mean?"
Yeah.
So like, it really like sparked some self-reflection, and then I had that time during furlough to actually sit down with myself and say like, "Who is Ruth?"
That's interesting that you say that, because when I see you, basically backstory, I follow Ruth on Instagram.
Yeah.
We've met, I think once. I don't know if you remember. It was an event in
Yeah,
Manchester. Yes.
Yeah.
And when I see you as such an inspiration, like someone that I can look up to. I'm like, how does Ruth do it? Like, she's doing so and so together, and I've even reached out and said like, hey, I'm trying to start this. Like, how did you do it and stuff like that. So like, in the midst of like just being a boss babe, sometimes you forget to just sit still and like be grateful and practice like gratitude. And that's something that we wanted to talk about like on today's episode. Just how do you practice gratitude? Like, how do you just thank God, whoever that you thank? Like, how do you do that?
I journal and I talk a lot to like my family about certain things. I think I can speak in my own personal experience that being a woman, it's almost that you can't talk about your successes because that could be viewed in a different way. But I think it's really important, now that I've gotten older and I have a support network, it's so easy for me to say, oh, hey, babe, I've started this, the charity and stuff, and actually talk about it with the woman because the mindset is different. And so surrounding yourself with people that also recognize the challenges and the hurdles that they've had to overcome, it makes it easier to talk about those successes. But for me, I journal a lot just so I can materialize as well what I want, and just as a reminder to myself that I'm doing a good job, because it's so easy to just feel like you're not doing enough. I feel like even the term boss babe, it makes it seem like you're always like thriving every day, you're hitting your goals, but it's not about that. So just embracing the journey. One of the hardest things was, like you said, slowing down, because you're always wanting to be on 100, but I think slowing down, whether it's like I'll take sort of like a weekend vacation away, just away from home, to just be by myself and to just reflect and say like, okay, so this is what's happened. How can I improve? Maybe something didn't work well for me, so how do I overcome that, and how can I take those lessons onto the next thing that I'm doing? So just taking time to slow down has helped, like with my gratitude as well.
That's amazing. How do you find how do you practice your gratitude, Nicole?
Oh my gosh. I feel like that's an easy and difficult question a lot of times, because one thing that I seem to struggle with is people seeing gratitude as being self-infatuated. Like, if you're celebrating your successes too much, it's she's so full of herself. So you find yourself most of the time wallowing in the things that you haven't achieved yet, because you're scared of, if I wake up every day and I say, I'm grateful for having my parents, or I'm grateful for the job that I have, then somebody else is going to say, you're just trying to rub it in our face and we're unemployed, or I'm an orphan. So I find myself struggling with that a lot. But I just like what she said, I have quite a supportive group. So just that, and most of the time it's the people around me that are constantly reminding me of the things that I've managed to accomplish. And it's once in a while that I actually sit back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I did that.
Yeah.
A lot of the times I'm always thinking forward, like, what haven't I done yet? And, what's coming next after this that I barely take time to look back and say, oh my goodness me, I just did this and, I reached a milestone. So I think that's still a journey that I'm still to walk and just stop taking things more myself,
That's so true, as you're saying that, I'm actually thinking, because a lot of the time, like, this is around New Year's time, we've set our resolutions and our goals.
Yeah.
So we live so much in the future that we don't live today.
In the present.
Yeah, like one thing that my husband encouraged me to do is every day, at the end of the day or first thing in the morning, depends what our schedules look like. We sit down and say, what 3 things are you grateful for? And that's like a really good way of like actually just sitting and like taking time. Whatever has happened yesterday, you can wake up and say, I'm grateful I had that meeting. Because it's still an opportunity. It doesn't just come by. Like constantly reminding yourselves of that. I feel that that's how, because I'm a Christian, that's also how I see God's work in me. Because if I don't say it, it doesn't register in my head. You just always think like, oh, you're moving around and you're doing the great things. But actually just taking time to say, what are you grateful for? I'm grateful for X, Y, Z. I'm grateful for waking up. I'm grateful for this. But you try and like change it every day. So it's like, what has happened today? That's like, you're like, you couldn't have just done that,
And it's those little things like, I'm grateful for waking up. Like, not every, like, we take for granted. The fact that we've been given another day, another hour. I struggled a lot with like being grateful for like what I had in the moment, just in life in general. Because I'm such a go-getter. Like, I'm like, okay, we've accomplished this. Okay, what's next?
Time to move on.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't sit in the moment and think, you did that. This was your moment. You've done so and so. Give yourself a pat on the back, like, because you did that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't do that. But now I take some time out. Like, in the week, I have to make sure there's a day that I do absolutely nothing. Yeah. Just to like reflect and just be in the moment. And I think that's really good.
Yeah.
It's been helping a lot.
But also, I was watching this Gold podcast and they raised what could be a controversial comment, but they were attributing, this sort of thing that we don't celebrate our successes to the society in general. Like, how does the African society view success? In your opinion, do you think maybe we as Africans, as Zimbabweans specifically, we have a culture of celebrating the things that we've done?
Yes and no. I think, I'm lucky that I'm exposed to, some phenomenal, ambitious women who can talk about those things. And because of the people around them, they see that as inspiration and not the whole, I'm just rubbing it in your face kind of thing. But then I think because culture has made success become a G-Wagon, a house, and this, but that isn't really what success is. And I think it just depends on the person, what their definition of success is. Some people, yes, it is a car, and I feel like, we have a good culture in actually talking about our successes, but it's almost materialistic and not like the little successes of, guess what, I went to the gym 5 days this week. Things like that. I don't think we do, the normal relatable elements that someone else can say like, oh wow, like you did that, I'm going to start running, for example, I'm going to start walking, I'm going to do that. And, when we say we've got our G-Wagons, might be like 1 or 2 people that can relate, like, yeah, well done. To the normal person, that's like quite still, unattainable. So I think we do a good and not so okay job.
I find it difficult to tell people, especially people outside of my family and outside of my friends group, to say, oh, I've done this, because it's almost like you become a threat. I don't know if you ladies can relate to that, like, and sometimes just trying to tell people what you've accomplished, or even them just complimenting, like, oh, you're doing well with this. It's almost like, yeah, you can do well, but not better than me. So it kind of stops you from even just externalizing things that you're feeling internally.
I think that's where there's a bit of a cultural difference, a little bit. I think in the UK, people tend to celebrate each other a little bit more. And like, I feel like in my friendship circle, I'm comfortable to share my successes with anyone, and I know that like their success doesn't like make me feel any smaller. I'm extremely happy when my friends achieve whatever they achieve, and I know they're also quite happy when I achieve whatever I achieve. But I feel like in Zimbabwe, like talking about your successes. It's more like Kudzai. Like so.
100%.
I don't know where that stems from though. Like, what's your guys' take on that? Yeah.
No, I think you're spot on. I've been in Zimbabwe. I can see that it is a bit difficult to have that that discussion around successes. But I totally agree with everything that you're saying. That in the UK, the mindset is a little bit different, and touching on mindset, it is about like how people think about these things.
True.
So it is also equally as important. Like you said, you only trust your family. But if you had people with the same mindset as you, it wouldn't limit you. I think it starts with being secure in yourself.
Yeah.
You're working hard. You're doing that. Well, whatever people may think about that is irrelevant because it's about you. And I feel like when we talk about our successes, we're also manifesting and affirming to ourselves because we don't take the time to do that. So however you talk about successes, whether it's through social media or whether through like a conversation with a friend, it is an affirmation to, it's also a reminder to you like, yeah, I did that, because you can't wait for somebody to tell you that. That's how you build up your confidence, your self-esteem, to then tackle the next thing, I think. But yeah.
I also think that and this is like a blessing, something that we have to be grateful for. Like the UK has a credit economy, whereas Zimbabwe doesn't. So let's say you want to start a business, you can go to the bank and ask for a loan, and they'll give you a loan depending on if you can afford it, to pay back and whatnot. In Zimbabwe, there's this whole thing of when a young woman becomes successful, she must have a sugar daddy. She must have someone sponsoring what she's doing, and everybody's very much intrigued, like, how did you do it? Like, if it is that your parents have funded this money, like, everybody wants to know, how did you do it? So, like, there becomes, like, speculations of, like, oh, yeah, you know what, she must be doing voodoo. Like, there's never, like, a good way in attaining, like, your success in Zimbabwe, I feel. I don't know if anyone...
It is actually quite true. I went through that in my professional life. I came from a small regional radio station going to the national broadcaster, and so when I made that move, it wasn't, oh, you did well, like you have stellar, good presentation. It was, what do you know? Like, how did you get the job? So it's almost like it discredits you so much. And speaking back to what you were saying, Ruth, earlier about you need to be, firm in yourself and be believing in yourself, because when you don't have that self-belief, you also start kind of buying into, oh, maybe I couldn't have done this if I didn't have this external help from this person. Whereas, maybe it was just an opportunity that came, but you got the job solely because you were good at it. So there's a lot of speculation of, oh, she made this, or there's no way she's going to be able to go on vacation with just a shop. Like, there must be someone who's sponsoring that side of her lifestyle.
But do you think that's true? Do you think that's speculation of that, or that's true for like a typical
I wouldn't say it's true in all cases. I really believe that there's a lot of Zimbabwean women that are doing well for themselves, and also this stereotype only applies to women, but we are operating in the same economic environment with men. So it becomes an issue of, why is it so hard for you to believe that a woman can take herself out on vacation for a week and a man can't do that for themselves, can do that for themselves? So it becomes a stereotype that I think is just attached to women, and most of the time if you really start digging deep into it, you'll probably see that it's another woman that's just spreading all of these rumors. The reasons, I don't know, but a lot of people would say probably just insecurity for themselves, that they're just projecting on other people as well.
100%. And I think as well, we as Zimbabwean collectively don't do a good job in saying our stories. Like you said, people only see the facade of, okay, she's got a shop, she's taking herself on holidays, but they don't know what else she's doing. She could be investing out of the country, she could be doing all of these things that aren't so, it's a physical shop. But I don't think that there are enough stories that inspire people to actually say, like, you can do this if you go down this route, like you were just saying about, we can have a conversation and say, okay, Opera, if you want to start your business, there's this person you can speak to who can guide you to this person, you can go get credit, you can go do that. But people don't get that. They only see that facade. And I think that's, like you said, it's also insecurities, but that's how then it cultivates that whole, okay, she must be doing something, you know? So I think collectively we need to do better in terms of just highlighting opportunities that exist. Even in yourself, people take it for granted, but networking is so important. yes, okay, you may have moved from the small radio station to the big, but you worked to get networking, to get contacts, to understand who you may need to speak to understand what qualifications you need to do. But people don't understand that it's a process. People just see, you've gone from A to B.
They haven't seen 6 months of work.
That you've just jumped. And then again, it comes to that whole conversation that we're saying about like successes, is we only then say success, but we don't document our journeys to that. You see some people, like I follow this girl, right? And you can see every day she's always posting things that she's doing. That when she's making 7 figures, I'm going to be like, yeah, because I was seeing what she was doing, But people then only start to follow you when you are successful, when you've got when you're like a big personality, does that make sense? And they only see that version, but they don't see where you've come from. But
exactly. Like, speaking of success, how do you define success?
Oh, that is a good question.
Yeah, when will Ruth said that she's successful now? Like,
I think I'm successful. Yeah, I fully think that I am. I think my version of success has changed over the course of my life. It started with when I graduate, when I get a job, when I start this, when I do that. But all of those things are tangible. I think for me, success is being happy, right? I feel when I say like I'm successful, I know that I can take care of my family. To me, that's what success is. Okay. You can do all the rest of the things, you can make money, but if I'm not able to take care of my family, I don't think I've done that. And I feel like I take care of them in their own ways. So now I've had to rewind my program to think, I can't wait till I say, okay, 10 years down the line, I'm going to be successful. I'm successful now. So that just changes my mindset whenever I want to do things. I'm not doing them because I'm like, that's going to make me successful. I'm doing it now as like, you know what? I'm content with my life right now. If I get more, it's a bonus. So I then ask myself, like, what more am I capable of? So then everything that I do is I'm still testing myself. Like, I know there's still more in me. So I'm going to do that. So that's just really helped me to just, even like confidence building and all that stuff. Because you also start putting yourself and you're like, oh, you're not successful. But it's in the small things, Got a roof over your head. I have food. I have a car. I can live a life. And that is success, because there's some people that possibly aren't in that same situation. So not taking those small things for granted, I think, is like really important, because that does contribute to your success.
Yes, 100%. And that just kind of like emphasizes on what you said on journaling. Like, you're grateful that you have a roof over your head. Like, it's not every day that you wake up and think, oh yeah, I've got a roof over my head. I'm grateful. Because it's always been there. So you take those things for granted. So it's really good to like just be in the moment and like look at every single thing that's happening. Like that, the fact that you've got family around you still have people that you can go to cry to, because some people that were abandoned at like birth, they don't have anyone they can like go to. So I think that's really good.
Well, I'm interested to know what are your definitions of success?
I struggled with like accepting myself and accepting my achievements. I struggled a lot with defining what success meant, because I feel like my journey to success has not been the smoothest, and probably so has a lot of people's. So I got to a point where I questioned myself, like, is what you're doing enough? Like, what's going on? And I struggled with mental health actually, like, for quite some time, when I didn't know that I was struggling with mental health. And I was also struggling with women's health. Like, my iron levels were like low because of like time of the month, etc. And I had no idea. So because of like such situations, I wasn't able to like achieve certain things that I wanted to, and I was pushing, trying to get things done, but nothing was working out. And it actually like started to take a toll on my self-esteem and like what I wanted to do. But like really and truly, like when I define success now is the fact that I'm good within myself. Like I'm mentally in the right space. I'm healthy, and I've got family around me. I've got people that love me. I'm able to wake up and film a podcast like what we're doing right now. I'm able to find myself, to have food on the table. Do you know what I mean? Like for me, that's what success is. Because if I try to look at the G-Wagon, the big house that we're gonna have, that's pressure. Like I don't want to put that on myself.
But I can completely relate to what you're saying. Because I think just by virtue, a lot of people just tend to put success as the physical aspect, like you're saying, the wealth. Like, oh, I want to drive this car. I want to. In Zim, I know maybe you ladies wouldn't be able to relate to this, but in Zim, it's kind of like, I want to go to school. I want to get into uni, graduate, get married, have a kid, like that's a successful life. And everyone puts success to be this linear thing that it really isn't. At some point in my life, I thought, oh, I want to be that, like, you know, the 25 in the Winkedy song. I want to be married, I want to drive a car, I want to have a house at 25 and all of that. And that's how I defined success. And it wasn't until probably like just 2 years ago, actually, that I realized that success isn't in all of those things, because I got to a point where, okay, I've graduated, I've got the job that I've always wanted, but I'm still not that happy. I'm not as fulfilled as I thought I would be. So that's when I started just shifting my whole mindset. And so success to me is really just my mantra. As my personal brand, Nicole Jabu, we have 3 words: impact, power, and purpose. So just me making an impact, and I believe that we are just by this conversation, because a lot of young girls are probably sitting at home thinking, oh, I don't have a job, like I haven't discovered who I am as a person, so this must mean I'm not successful. But we've just literally redefined success for them. And, you know, just being able to realize what sort of power you have in whatever situation you are, and just living your purpose every day, which to me is a continuous blessing. And every time just being able to do the things that I love, spend time with the people that I love, is my success.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good.
It's amazing.
Right, but it took so long to realize that. It took a lot of, you know, battering. I used to say this to Opie that for a really long time I was so insecure with myself. You know, having gone through like a little bit of bullying in my early life, high school, primary school, you know, it was quite difficult to try and find my footing as an adult, because those things never really leave your mind unless you start, you know, taking an intentional step and, you know, reaffirming yourself every day and telling yourself, like, I'm not who other people say I am, but it's my job to show them who I am, and for them to accept it or not is really beyond me. All I can just do is to show up for myself.
Oh, I like that. That's a hard question. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. I think if I start there. So I did biological sciences for my degree because I come from Zim, had gone through education doing sciences, so it was a no-brainer, right? And then fortunately for me, there was a placement, right? And I did it, absolutely hated it. I mean, I love sciences, but I absolutely hated the work. And I just thought, you know, it was 3 months, but those were that was the longest decade of my life. That's how it felt, right? And then I went back and I finished my degree, and then I was going into my master's, and I had to take a minute to actually ask the people around me, what am I good at? Tell me, what qualities do you think I'm good at? And, you know, people like, you're a people person. You know, I had a position at church, so I was doing quite a lot of like management with like the youth, organizing, writing reports from like quite a young age. So, you know, that whole conversation came up. So I used that, getting feedback from obviously people that you trust. And I was like, okay, let me look at certain roles that I can get into. And that's how project management came up. It wasn't even something that was on my mind. It was like, okay, I'm going to take what everyone said. You know, went online as a project manager, managing people. Okay, I can do that. Organization, I was like seeing myself in that role already. And then did my master's in project management, and that's the profession that I've been in a while. There have been times where it's, you know, this is what I'm good at, but I'm not necessarily getting the fulfillment that I need to get. So it's not always black and white that doing what you love or doing what you're good at is going to fulfill that. I think I've been intentional in my career path. Like I said, my own mission is to impact people positively and, you know, create a change. I've been doing that, and where things haven't been aligning, then I, you know, change jobs, because I want to make sure that with what I'm doing, even if it's not customer facing, the customers that we're serving as a business, I can still impact them through the work that I do. And then that helped me get into management, because I was like, you know what, I want a one-to-one relationship with my clients. I want to be able to take them from A to B and feel like I'm impacting them. And even when I started at management, I chose to only work with organizations that were working with other people to amplify the impact, that if I work with one person, they're going to reach 100, you know. So to me, that's kind of like my career journey and how I got to my career. I would say it's not a very straightforward answer, and it's not black and white. I think sometimes it takes you getting into those roles to then understand if it fulfills you. And it's not for anyone to tell you what fulfills you. You realize that by yourself. So I can't quite fully advise that. I'm always like to people, you need to be open to opportunities, because sometimes the one thing that's going to surprise you is the thing that's going to give you so much fulfillment. And I think nowadays, like, our generation is quite good in, they have a job because we have to pay bills, and sometimes it's just a job, not necessarily something they love, but then they start making candles because they enjoy that, it's their hobby, they love that. So they're kind of like filling their cup because of the side thing that they're doing, and the ambition is for that to materialize into a full business. So I would say a combination of both.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So,
Yeah.
you can go ahead.
as someone that started quite a lot of things, what kind of a mentality do you have to be in to be like, oh, do you know what? Today I wake up, I'm gonna start a foundation. I wanna like get into project management. Like, what gives you that push and that drive to do so?
I was speaking to someone and they asked me the exact same question.
Oh,
yesterday.
wow.
I always say this. My fear is mediocrity. I don't want to just be. I need to figure out what more I can do. Like, it goes back to even like my mentality when I do things is, what more am I capable of? I don't want to just be Ruth that's just existing.
Yes.
I know that I can create a change in whatever shape that will take form of. You figure that out at 5 years or figure that out at 50 years. Constantly trying to understand what your purpose is. And, it's not like I'm going to find my purpose in my job. I could find my purpose by speaking to you. I could find my purpose through doing this. So constantly trying to, understand, is this it? Am I meant to do more? That is what pushes me. Like, I can't just be like, just going through life. Like, I have a duty to leave the world a better place than how I found it for this generation.
Sorry, what advice would you give to like a Zimbabwean that lives in a different economy to what you're in at the moment? You're also Zimbabwean, but then like the economical background affects like how people then like dream. What advice would you give to someone that's living in Zimbabwe at the moment?
I would say dream. I would absolutely say dream. But then there needs to be a plan. I would say plan your actions. And even if you don't have what you need to do whatever it is that you need to do, there are people around you. And I don't think that you need to be boxed by, okay, if I live in this area, I need to stay in this area. I think constantly, challenge yourself to find out what more you're capable of. Okay, say you want to get a job. Maybe you've got that degree, or maybe you don't have that degree. How are you going to get there? I'm a project manager. Sorry, can't help it. But, I always use this analogy. Like, if I'm here right now, right, today is A. And even when I was starting the charity, I was like, okay, that's B. What are the steps that I need to take to get to B? Because it's not just, I'm just going to wake up and do it. It doesn't work like that. It's important to plan and dream. I think everyone is capable of achieving anything. They just need to push themselves, and they need to push themselves out of their comfort zone to achieve that.
Yes.
Well, my question is gonna act like it's taking us slightly back, but I know you said that you're in corporate and you work with people who are in the corporate world, and it seems like that type of in specific careers, you seem to thrive on accolades, like people giving you awards or compliments or whatever it is in the workplace. How then can someone who is in corporate still recognize their successes, maybe without those awards coming their way? Because it's also quite difficult. I'll take, for instance, for someone who's like me, radio and TV, sometimes you want to really host that, but you don't have an award to your name, and there's someone who probably has 5, maybe just for the sake of they've been in the industry for longer than I have been, but not necessarily saying we're not at the same wavelength when it comes to delivering.
Yeah. I always feel that your gifts will make room for you. My experience entering into the corporate world it was a male-dominated industry. In my company, on day one, I wasn't only just black, right? I was already a minority because I was the only black person, but I was a woman in a male-dominated industry, and I was young. I felt the urge or the desire to want to be like the men in there with 50 years of experience, and I can't match that, right? So for me, I was almost like I changed who I was to fit what was around me, and fortunately for me, I had a mentor who whipped me into shape pretty quickly and said, you just have to be yourself. So I generally feel that when you are yourself, people will see you for you, and you will always get the opportunity at the time you need to get the opportunity. I understand your point about if you want to host but you haven't got those, if the producer knows that you are good at your job, they will still choose you regardless of the accolades. Because what are accolades? It's just, in some sense, maybe I'm saying it's almost like a vanity thing. You're seeing awards popping left, right, center. What do they actually mean? Is it to say that this person is more better than you? No. It just means maybe they have been out, they've networked more, but it doesn't mean that they're better than you. Yeah. You are still yourself, and when the opportunity comes, it will come in the right time. And a lot of the time, we're always trying to rush. We're always trying to be like, I want that award, I want this. But everything in its own time. I feel God will make it beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, that is such beautiful words and, quite profound. Because I find that, there's a lot of pressure around what are people saying about me, like the external validation. Like we just said, at times it's not just the verbal one, but it's also what do I have to show and to prove that I'm actually worth it and, I'm good enough to be on this stage. So it tends sometimes to be a barrier that stops you from, even trying out for the opportunities. But like just coming back to a topic that we, delved into slightly some time ago of, women not being able to take opportunities for themselves and waiting until maybe they're overqualified to be in this space. What would be your word of advice for, people that are probably just doubting themselves a little too much? Like, at times you're actually good and, you could have the potential to get that job, to be in that space, but you're just putting in these barriers for yourself.
Yeah, I would say everything can be learned, even if you feel that you don't have that qualification. It then goes back to what are you doing about yourself? Like, I wake up and meet myself in the morning, right? And I'll explain what that means. I literally go into the mirror and I talk to myself. The voice that's in my head and the voice that responds are two different people. Because the voice in my head it just takes a split second to just say, nah, you can't meet that person. But I'm meeting them, so we're both, on the same vibe. I do my affirmations because I'm reminding myself I'm just as capable. So I think sometimes, as much as you can always do physical things, I think it starts with your mindset first. What are you doing to work on yourself so you can overcome those doubts and those limiting beliefs? Are you meeting yourself in the morning? Are you affirmed? Do you know who you are? Because when you know who you are, you can walk into any room and it doesn't matter about what anyone has to say, because you've got the knowledge, you've got the resources, you're capable of doing that. And I struggled with that, right? Because I knew I was good at my job, but because of all these minority boxes that I was ticking, I just limited myself. But I felt when I fully accepted that, you know what, I'm not going to be a man, I'm a woman, I'm young, I have innovative ideas. And because I'm always exposed to the executive team who have I was sat in a room, right? And they were discussing, and I was like, oh, I have this really good idea. Like, they're going around in circles, but like, it's just so simple. And I was having such an internal dialogue with myself, right? Yeah. And I was just like, oh, well, nothing is stupid. Because, that's the advice that you always get told. Any question is not stupid. Yeah. I really, in that moment, I was like, yeah, any question is not stupid. And I just said that. And they all listened. And I was like, oh, so my voice is important. Yeah, things like that. Like, you would actually be so surprised what, what you can command as a result of your capabilities and your knowledge and your thinking. So just sometimes stepping out and just do that one thing that scares you, and then you'd be surprised. Next day you'd be more confident. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and just to comment on that as well, just for maybe a typical female living in Zimbabwe, I believe in sometimes you could be at the right place at the right time. Yeah. You can meet people through networking. And I feel because there's this negative stigma of you're in this space, maybe you're networking with male figures because you're trying to get something from them, which is not a career. You're trying to get something sexual, maybe, I don't know. But I just feel there's a saying that says first they laugh and then they copy. Is it?
That is.
That's the saying. I feel if you know what you want to do, you know where you want to be, what you want to achieve, it doesn't matter where you are. If it means that it's a 70-year-old man that's going to get you there, just be in the space. Whatever they say, it doesn't matter at all. Just be in that space and just know what you're there for, what you're trying to, know what your aim is for whatever you're trying to get. Yeah. So be in those spaces. Don't fear it because you're a woman. What people are going to say, if I'm now seen with this man, like, because you're not going to go anywhere. It's
Yeah.
just you're always just going to be scared, like in such situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, just coming back to the topic of, you know, being grateful, which is, you know, why we're here. And this one is specifically directed to Ruth. I know, Opie, you can answer to. Was there ever a time that you were grateful for a downfall or like a painful moment?
Yes, there was a time, and it's probably one of those moments that I was grateful in that moment. Most of the time, I'm always grateful when I'm out of it because I don't see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, why is this happening to me? Why me? And in that moment, until like 3 months later, you're looking back and
in
like,
hindsight.
oh yeah, like, you know, this is what's happened. I think there's only been one instance where it's been quite hard, and I was like able to recognize that, you know what, this wasn't for me. But that also came from people giving me advice about the direction I was going. So when it happened, I was like, you know what, I didn't want to listen, but maybe this is God's way of telling me that really stop and listen to everyone around you. It's a difficult thing, but yeah, I think that would be the moment for me. I've had one.
Agree?
Yes, 100%. 100%. I think like 2 years ago, a lot just happened for me, like where things just kind of, everything just broke. Right. So she was dealing with that, and everything was happening. I was just like, God, why me? I don't want to be here. Like, why did you pick me for your strongest strongest soldiers list? Yeah. I don't want to be here. But I prayed about it. I thought that like God wanted me to have that moment of stillness so I can realize what was actually happening, and so I can stop and then like follow my dreams even further. And I realized that in everything that wasn't working out, I wasn't okay myself. So God wanted me to stop and like look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, you've got a lot of work to do on yourself. This is what you need to focus on. And I focused on myself, and everything since then has just been like flowing. And I'm so grateful that everything ended, everything happens, because I'm like strong.
Yeah. And you know, like the reason why I asked is because, you know, a lot of the times we seem to term failure or struggling as a bad thing.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Sometimes failure is there to teach you a lesson. I can also say, like 2 years ago, I also had a lot going on. A failed relationship, a career that felt like it was about to end, and yet it was just about to start. You know, it was quite a confusing time. Also, just having trouble at home, so it felt like literally the world was crashing, and I would just be home. I was so depressed. I think at that time I spent almost a year of just working like 6 hours a week, which meant like in all the hours in a week, I just had 12 hours to my work, and the other time was just be sitting in one wing in my sorrows. And it wasn't until then that I realized that like all this while I never paid attention to myself. And just also being Christian and, you know, being spiritual, that's when I realized like I've just been moving, like what she was saying earlier, because, you know, I had quite an early start to my career. After uni, I just straight got into work, and it was just work, and I never actually took time to breathe. So it wasn't until I came to that realization of, oh my goodness me, like I've just been on this roller coaster of, you know, going at crazy speeds that I didn't pay attention to myself. And it wasn't until then that the brand that you see now came to be. So I've come to a place where I'm able to recognize when there's a failure, and I can tell what the failure is there to teach me.
Yeah. No, that's so good, because I think that's the hardest thing. I'm in project management, so for us, failure is not great, but it teaches you a lesson. So I've almost tried to implement the same thing, that when something fails, I need to look at why, what happened, what happened here that needs to be improved on. But I think the most important part you touched on is that stillness. To just take a minute and reflect, because we don't always do that. We fail, and we want to pick ourselves up, and then we fail again, we want to pick ourselves up. There's never a time that we actually just sit and say like, oh, wow, what happened? Until like 5 years down, and it all happened, and we're like sitting here, and we're like, you know, I felt like 10 times, but in those moments, you weren't actually like paying attention to what you can do.
Yeah. So as we close down on this episode, this is a challenge that we give to every guest. It's not a scary one, so you can relax. We kind of pick your mind a little on the things that you live by. Maybe it's a quote that you found in a book, maybe it's a Bible verse, or just like words that were said by someone famous, or words that you live by yourself. So since you're a woman, we'll say a wise woman once said, and you have to finish the statement.
A wise woman once said, oh, but...
So you're the wise woman.
I know.
You can be the wise woman. You can create another wise woman. You can create a book, a podcast that you listen to, or something that really touched your heart.
The most expensive place on earth is the gravesite.
Wow.
Yeah. I heard that from Basman Royce, so not quite a woman, but I hope it inspires someone. When I heard that quote, everything changed for me. It made me think, if I have that idea, I don't want to die with it. I should do something about it. Learn, maybe grow, maybe thrive, whatever that may be. And again, I always say, wise woman once said, find out what you're capable of is my favorite thing as well. So, last few words of inspiration to life.
Profound. Very profound.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
I had a blast. It was so good speaking to you, ladies.
Right.
I really like that.
Yeah, it's like sometimes these podcasts become like a little therapy session.
Yeah,
They let
do.
things off
Yeah.
the
How's
chest.
they reflecting? I'm like sweating here. I'm like, I need to go home. I need to get back to my book. I need to write all this.
Right. No, it is good. And I hope that everyone who watched this episode, took a few nuggets from it, and you will just take time to self-reflect. And also, don't take that idea to the grave, guys. Just work on it. You have all the potential in the world to achieve everything that you ever imagine and everything that you can dream of. This was the episode on Eloquent Insights today. We were graced by Ruth. Wishing you all the best in your endeavors. We wish to see more of you in Zimbabwe. I know you're doing great work. We just wish that you do more. Remember, guys, you can follow us on our social media. It is Eloquent Insights on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok. ELOQ-IN. That's ELOQ_IN. Follow us, share all of the links, let the family grow. We call everyone Elo Queens here, so let the queens stop queening and let's stay queening. Otherwise, we love you. Until next time, bye.
Thank you. Bye.